The colony was quiet that night. The stars above were sharp and endless, a soft glow from the twin moons stretched across the hills, and the people in the settlement tried to believe that tomorrow would be just like today. Families sat in their homes, speaking in low voices. Farmers checked their equipment. Children played in the narrow streets, but under the calm surface there was fear, because rumors had already spread about lights in the sky, strange lights not like anything human ships made then. The silence broke. It began as a low hum, at first so faint that only the dogs noticed. They barked and ran in circles, while their owners tried to calm them. Then the hum grew into a steady vibration that shook windows and rattled dishes. The children stopped laughing, the adults stopped speaking, and every face turned to the sky. At first the people thought it was a meteor storm, beautiful cosmic show, but when the first dark shape came out of the stars, their breath froze. It was not a rock. It was a ship too large, too sleek, too alien. The colony had no defense, only mining tools and weak patrol drones. None of that could stand against what now drifted above them. The ship hung in the sky like a blade. Its surface shimmered with strange colors, shifting like oil on water. More ships followed, 1 to 10, until the sky was covered and the stars disappeared behind their black hulls. Then a voice thundered across the colony, not through speakers, not through radios. It was inside their heads. Every man, woman, and child heard the words, "We are the divinary. We are gods. You will kneel or you will perish." The people screamed. Some clutched their heads in pain. Others fell to the ground in terror. The voice pressed on their minds, heavy and merciless. It felt like a storm inside their skulls. Light spread across the alien ships, beams of gold and crimson cutting through the night and washing the colony in unnatural light. The leader of the colony, Governor Ahala, stumbled to the central square. People gathered around him, desperate for guidance. His voice shook, but he shouted anyway, "These are not gods. They are invaders. Hold firm. We will endure." But even as he said it, his eyes showed doubt. The alien ships descended lower. They moved without sound, gliding across the air like predators hunting. The people scattered. Some ran to their homes. Others huddled together in the open, as if numbers could protect them. Then one of the ships stopped above a small storage dome, and a single line of blue fire lanced downward. The dome exploded in a flash of white heat. The ground trembled, and a mushroom of ash rose into the night. The message was clear. They could destroy anything at will. The people cried out. Many fell to their knees, not to be harmed. Others cursed and shouted, refusing to submit. The aliens watched without moving. Their ships remained cold and perfect, as if they were above all emotion, above all weakness. Inside one of the ships, a tall figure stood at a wide window. Its skin was pale silver, its eyes glowing with light. It looked down at the colony like a farmer studies insects, and when it spoke, the people heard again in their heads. "You are small, you are weak, we are eternal. Bow and live, resist, and die." The children clung to their parents. The old men trembled and whispered prayers, but somewhere in the back of the crowd, a young miner named Reeve clenched his fists. His father had died building this colony. His mother had worked herself to the bone to keep him alive, and now strangers dared to claim they were gods. He whispered to himself, not gods, never gods." Night dragged on with fear heavy in every breath. More ships appeared, until the sky seemed filled with them. The divinari had come not as visitors, but as rulers. Their presence crushed all hope. Then came the ritual. The aliens demanded the people gather in the central square so their godhood could be witnessed. The colonists resisted at first, but the ships fired again this time. At a water tower it vanished in a ball of fire, spraying steam and shrapnel across the outskirts that broke. The people most came to the square, shaking and silent. Governor Hales stood in front of them, trying to appear strong, but his hands trembled. The air shimmered, and a shape appeared on the platform, a projection tall and terrible, a divinary figure, its face smooth and cruel. Its voice thundered, "Kneel before your gods." For a moment the people hesitated, then slowly some bent their knees, tears running down their faces. Others followed one by one, until most were kneeling. Only a handful remained standing, their eyes full of anger among them. Reeve and a few soldiers with rifles too weak to matter against the ships. The alien projection looked Down at them you will learn obedience. Humanity is nothing without worship up. The colony, the largest ship, shifted position. Its hull lit up with strange symbols burning with red light. The people looked up in awe and horror. It felt as though the sky itself had turned against them. The Devanari wanted fear, and they had it. They wanted obedience, and they had most of it, but not all, for deep inside the colony. Communications room. A signal burst into the dark, carried on radio waves across the endless stars, a cry for help, desperate and small, but real. Aliens did not know yet, but somewhere far away, something human was listening then. Colony night stretched into dawn, but the sun was weak against the shadow of the alien ships. The Devanari stayed above like watchful gods, their power unmatched, their will absolute. The people whispered of death, whispered of slavery, whispered that maybe surrender was the only way, but in the hearts of a few sparks of defiance burned. They had seen the aliens destroy, but they had also seen hesitation. They had seen pride and arrogance, and that meant weakness. No god needed to prove itself again and again. Only mortals. Didriv stood on the outskirts, staring at the sky, his hands tight around rusted mining tool. He could not fight them, not yet, but he promised himself when the time came he would rise. The colony waited every second, stretched into eternity, the Devanari ships, silent above them like vultures waiting for Fleshan somewhere. Deep in the cold black of space, a warship stirred away. The colony never slept after that night. People huddled in groups, speaking in whispers, afraid the strange voice would return inside their heads. The Devanar ships floated above like silent predators, blotting out the stars. Every hour, beams of light swept over the streets, searching, watching, reminding the people that escape was impossible. Governor Hale walked through the central square, his eyes heavy, his voice low, trying to calm the colonists, but nothing he said could erase the memory of the dome exploding or the water tower turned into steam and ash. The people obeyed the aliens, because they were terrified, but in their hearts fear and despair mixed like poison. Rev sat on the edge of the settlement, staring at the dark horizon, his mind full of anger. He remembered his father's words, "Men are not meant to kneel," and he whispered them again under his breath, "Not meant to kneel." The Devanari might have fire and ships, but they were not gods. He clenched his fists until his knuckles bled. In the shadows of the communication station, a young technician named Mara worked quietly, her hands shaking as she rewired panels she had stayed behind after the last attack, ignoring Hale's orders to evacuate the building. She knew if they could send a signal, someone somewhere might hear. She thought about Earth, the fleets, the legends of warships. She thought of hope, and that was enough. Mara pressed the last cable into place. Sparks hissed and the console lit up weak, but alive. She bit her lip, her eyes darting to the window where alien lights moved like hungry insects across the night sky. If they caught her, the punishment would be swift. She forced herself to breathe. Steady, and typed the message, "This is Colony Vega 9. We are under attack by an unknown species calling themselves the Devanar. They claim to be gods. They have destroyed our defenses. We are unarmed. We need help. Any human vessel, any fleet, please respond." Her voice trembled as she repeated the message again and again into the darkness of space. She knew the chances were small, but it was all they had. She closed her eyes and pressed send. For a moment nothing happened, just the hum of the broken machinery. Then the console flickered. Static filled the speakers. A faint signal, something not alien, not Devanar. But it was too weak. Mara leaned closer, turning the dials, but the noise faded away. Her heart sank still. The message was out. The seed of hope was planted. The Devanari noticed quickly. Their ships shifted position. One beam of golden light swept down across the colony. The voice thundered again in their minds. "Your cries are useless. No one will save you. No one will hear you. Kneel and be silent, or the punishment will fall again." People screamed and fell to the ground, clutching their heads as the voice tore through them. Mara bit her lip hard until it bled. Fighting the urge to collapse, she whispered to herself, "Someone will hear. Someone." Mostovan, the alien flagship. The commander watched through a wide screen, his body tall and cold, his eyes burning like white fire. The humans were weak, fragile yet stubborn. He had seen some still refuse to kneel. He had seen the sparks of rebellion. He turned to his officers. "Mortals, clinging to false pride, send hunters find the source of the message obedient. Drones detached from the flagship and drifted toward the colony, their shapes sharp and insect-like. They carried claws. And scanners and their orders were simple: locate and erase. Back in the settlement, panic spread. When the drones descended, their wings humming like swarms of locusts, the people ran indoors, doors slammed, windows shut, but the drones were merciless, moving street by street, scanning every house, searching for the hidden transmitter. Governor Hale tried to hold orders, shouting for calm, but his voice was drowned out by fear. The colonists had no weapons strong enough. The drones cut through walls with beams of light tearing apart entire homes, people screamed. As they were dragged into the open, scanned, and then discarded like broken tools, Reeves stood frozen, watching one drone approach the communication building. His chest burned with rage. He knew, if they found Mara, they would kill her without hesitation. He grabbed his mining tool and ran across the dirt road, his boots slamming the ground. The drone turned its gleaming eye on him, but before it could fire, he swung the heavy tool. With every ounce of strength, sparks flew. The machine staggered, then lashed back with a slash of its claw, cutting deep into his shoulder. Eve cried out but refused to fall. He struck again, smashing the drone until its light died and its metal body collapsed in the dust. His vision blurred, but he forced himself to stand. Mara opened the door, her face pale. She gasped when she saw his wound ear hurt. She whispered, "You need help, Reeve." Shook his head. "No time. Send the message. Keep sending it." More drones approached, their wings buzzing the night. Mara pulled Reeve inside, slamming the door as beams of light cut across the walls. The console flickered under her hands. She kept repeating the message, hoping, praying, each word a cry into the void. The Devanari commander watched the resistance with cold amusement. "These humans are insects, yet insects bite. Send more drones," he ordered, and the sky opened with dozens of black shapes. Colonists could see them blotting out the moon. Panic turned into chaos. Families ran into the hills, others begged for mercy in the square, but mercy was not in the nature of the Devanari. Punishment was. The flagship fired a warning shot, this time not at a building but at the ground outside the colony. The explosion shook the earth, leaving a smoking crater. The message was clear: the next strike would be against the people themselves inside the communication station. Reeves' vision swam with pain, his shoulder bleeding badly. Mara tore strips of cloth to bind it, but he pushed her hands away. "Don't stop sending," he whispered. "If someone is out there, they need to hear you." As she nodded, tears running down her face, her fingers moving across the controls faster and faster. Hours past the colony became silent again, broken only by the buzz of alien drones circling. Like vultures, the people dared not move, dared not speak. They lived under the constant shadow of destruction. Then something changed in the console. The static shifted. A faint pulse came through, irregular but real. Mara froze, her breath caught. She adjusted the signal, her heart pounding through the crackling noise. She heard a voice. "Vega 9, this is HSS Valiant signal. Receive the..." Words were faint, almost lost in the static, but they were human, unmistakably human. Mara gasped, her hands shaking. Reeve forced himself to sit upright, his face pale, but his eyes burning with life. He whispered again and again, "They heard us. They heard us but before." Mara could reply. The console sparked violently. A beam of golden light sliced through the roof. One of the drones had found them. The station shuddered as claws ripped into the walls. Reeve staggered to his feet, his weapon in hand. He stood between Mara and the machine, his legs weak but his will unbroken. "You'll have to kill me first," he growled. The drone screeched, moving forward, its claw raised. Then from the hills, a massive boom echoed. A streak of fire cut across the sky and struck the drone. It exploded into pieces, raining metal across the ground. The people outside looked up, gasping at the trail of smoke in the clouds. Something had fired from far. Mara stared in shock, her voice trembling. "That wasn't us." Rive grinned through his pain. "No, it wasn't Tabov, the colony." The Devanari commander leaned forward, eyes narrowing. He had felt the shot to not human colonists. Not primitive weapons, something larger, something hidden in the darkness of space. Something dangerous, the colony whispered in awe. Hope spread like wildfire even as fear clung to them. Someone out there had heard the call. Someone had answered, but the Devanar would not admit fear. They sent more ships into orbit. They raised their weapons. Higher they would crush this colony before hope could grow still. The message was out still the name of the warship. Burned in Mara's mind, HS's valiant humanity's blade somewhere in the dark approaching the night stretched long, every heart beat heavy. Colonists waited in silence, knowing the storm was not over, knowing the true battle had yet to begin. Dawn came, but it brought no peace. The alien ships still covered the sky, their dark shapes drifting like shadows across the light of the rising sun. The people of Vega 9 gathered in silence, the air thick with dread. The Devanari had not spoken again, but the threat of their presence hung heavier than words. Governor Hale stood in the square, his voice raw from a night without sleep. He told the colonists to stay calm, to stay together, but even he did not believe his own words. He had seen the destruction, the beam that erased the storage dome, the tower that became nothing but steam. The power of the Devanari was too great for any human colony to resist. The people wanted answers. Some shouted at Hale, demanding to know if the distress call had worked. Others whispered in fear that it had not, that they were truly alone and doomed. Hall had no answer. His eyes drifted toward the communication building half destroyed by the attack. The brave girl Mara was still inside, trying to repair the damage. Reeve beside her, pale from his wound but refusing to rest. They all the voice returned, the same voice that had pierced their minds before, stronger, colder. Kneel. The Devanari command. Kneel, or watch your colony burn. The words struck like hammers. The colonists cried out, clutching their heads. Some fell to the ground, screaming. Children wept. Mothers tried to cover their ears, but the voice was inside. It could not be blocked. Hale stood tall, though his knees shook, his hands clenched into fists. He shouted back at the sky, "We will not kneel, we are not your slaves." The ground shook in answer. One of the smaller alien ships descended, its hull glowing with strange runes. It hovered over the square, its shadow falling across the people. Then beam of light lanced down and tore through a row of houses. Fire erupted, smoke rose, screams filled the air. The Devanar spoke again. Kneel or perish. Fear broke the crowd. Some dropped to their knees, faces pressed into the dirt, begging for mercy. Others shouted in rage, refusing to bow. Families split apart, fathers kneeling to save children, mothers standing in defiance while tears streamed down their faces. The colony was breaking, not from fire, but from fear. Hale's voice cracked as he shouted, "Hold together, do not give them what they want." But fewer listened. Every explosion, every scream drove more people to their knees. Reeve stumbled out of the communication station, blood soaking his bandaged shoulder, his face pale but his eyes burning. He saw the people kneeling, and his chest filled with rage. "Stand up," he roared. "They are not gods. Do you hear me? Not gods." He pointed at the burning houses. "Gods. Do not fear a message, gods. Do not send machines to hunt children. They are liars, parasites." Some heads lifted, some eyes widened with a flicker of courage, but then another beam struck the far end of the square, throwing bodies into the air, and the cries of the wounded broke what little hope remained. Mara ran out behind Reeve, her hands black with ash. She shouted, "He is right. We sent the message. Someone heard us. The warship Valiant has heard us. Hold on. Just hold on." The name passed through the crowd like a spark. Valiant, a warship, a human ship, but the Devanari voice boomed again. "Lies. No one will come. Humanity is weak. Humanity is Urson." The flagship, high above the alien commander, watched the scene through his screens. He saw the humans breaking, half kneeling, half standing. He smiled, a thin, cruel smile. He turned to his officers. "See how fragile they are, yet some still resist. They believe their kind will come for them." How amusing. One of his officers asked, "Should we destroy them now?" The commander shook his head. "Not yet. Break them slowly. Fear is a sharper weapon than fire. Let them hope for rescue then. Take that hope away." Commander raised his hand, and the projection of his form appeared again in the square. Tall, terrible, glowing with white light, he looked down at the humans like insects. "You worship false dreams. Your worship will not come. You belong to us now, Bo." And live. His image towered over them, so lifelike that people sobbed as if the god itself had descended. Hale stepped forward, his fists clenched. "We belong to no one," he spat, his voice shaking but firm. The projection turned its gaze on him. "You defy gods." Hale lifted his chin. "No gods, only tyrants." The ground shook again as the alien ships fired into the hills near the colony. The explosion rumbled across the land, dust and smoke rising into the sky. The people screamed again. There will breaking even further. Reeves' voice cracked as he shouted, "Hold the line just a little longer." Inside the communication station, the console flickered weak static, filling the speakers again. Mara ran back inside, her heart pounding. She turned the dials, desperate. Come on, answer," she begged. Then, through the static, a faint crackle of voice. "This is HSS Valiant. Repeat your signal." Her breath caught her chest tight. She pressed the transmitter. "This is Vega 9. Under attack, Devanari. Ships hundreds. We need help. We need help." Now the voice came again, faint but stronger. "Copy Vega 9 message." "Received. Hold on, we are coming." Mara's eyes filled with tears. "They are coming," she whispered, her voice breaking with joy. But outside, the people did not hear. Only Mara knew, and Reeve, who staggered back inside the alien projection, still loomed over. The square demanding worship, the colonists torn between despair and the fragile hope whispered by those two young voices. Devanari drones moved through the streets, herding people into the square. The commander wanted them all in one place, ready to witness his power, ready to bend. He watched as more knees touched the dirt, more heads bowed, fear doing what fire could not yet in every crowd. There were still a few who stood trembling, but unbroken. The commander's smile faded slightly. He did not like defiance. No matter how small, he raised his hand, preparing to order another strike, when suddenly his sensors flickered an unknown signal. In the distance, something powerful moving. Closer, he frowned. "It cannot be. Humans have no ship fast enough, no weapons strong enough yet." The signal pulsed again, closer, stronger, back on Vega 9. The colonists felt the air change. The alien ships shifted in the sky. As if reacting to something unseen, the Devanar voice in their minds faltered for the first time. A crack in the arrogance, Reeve noticed. He staggered to the edge of the square, his face pale but his smile wide. He shouted, "See, even they fear something. They are not gods." The projection turned its blazing eyes on him. "Insects do not speak." Reeve spat blood onto the dirt. "Insects do not fight either, but humans do." The colonists looked between the burning houses, the kneeling neighbors, the towering alien image, and the broken but unyielding figure of Reeve. Something stirred inside. The Mispark Mara ran into the square, shouting, "The warship is coming. They heard us. Valiant is coming." The words hit like thunder. The kneeling lifted their heads. The standing straightened. Hope surged through them, raw and desperate. The alien projection roared lies, yet his voice shook with the faintest hint of doubt. The colonists began to murmur to each other, "Valiant, valiant." The word grew louder, rising above the fear. The alien ships above shifted nervously as the signal from deep space grew closer. Stronger, undeniable, the commander hissed in rage. Destroy the transmitter. Erase their hope at once. Drones turned toward the communication station, their claws glowing, ready to strike. Mara froze, fear gripping her. Reeve limped forward, lifting his broken tool again, his face set. If they wanted to crush hope, they would have to go through him. And above the colony, hidden by the light of the sun, something vast was moving through space, closing the distance. Every second, its engines burning silent and relentless. Humanity's answer approaching. The Devanari still claimed to be gods, but for the first time, the people of Vega 9 saw cracks in that illusion. For the first time, they believed gods could bleed. The night over Vega 9 stretched long and heavy. The alien ships still blotted out the stars, their lights sweeping slowly across the ground like the eyes of predators searching for prey. The colonists stayed huddled in their homes, whispering, too afraid to even breathe loudly. Every sound outside made them flinch. Every shadow felt like another drone creeping closer. Governor Hale sat in the ruined council building, staring at a cracked wall, his hands pressed over his face. He wanted to lead. He wanted to speak words that gave courage, but all he felt was despair. The Devanari had broken too. Many too quickly. Half of the colony now bowed at the first command. The other half wavered like a candle in the wind, and he knew one more strike might break them. In the communication station, Mara refused to stop her work, her eyes bloodshot, her hands raw from hours of repairs. The console still hissed with static, but now and then through the noise came faint pulses. Fragments of the same voice from before HSS Valiant. She clung to those fragments, as if they were life itself, repeating her message again and again. Reeve sat nearby, pale and weak. his wounded shoulder bound with dirty cloth. His strength fading, but his will burning, he watched Mara with tired eyes and whispered, "You did it. They heard us. Don't let them silence you." Outside, the Devanary drones prowled, scanning every corner of the colony, their claws slicing through walls, their sensors glowing bright. The alien commander demanded the source of the signal. But no matter how many houses they tore apart, no matter how many frightened colonists they dragged into the square, the humans refused to speak. The people had seen the faint crack in the godlike armor of their conquerors. They clung to that whisper of hope. Then it happened again. A sudden burst in the console. Mara leaned close, her heart hammering static, gave way to a human voice, faint but clear. "Vega 9, this is HSS Valiant. Confirm your status." Her breath caught. She shouted into the mic, "This is Vega 9? We are under Devanary control. Hundreds of ships above us. We cannot fight. We need help. Please hurry." There was a pause, then the voice replied, "Message received. Vega 9, we are on approach. Hold out as long as you can." Mara's hands shook. Tears filled her eyes. She turned to Reeve. "They're coming. Not just listening, they're coming." Reeve laughed weakly, even through the pain, his chest rising and falling with joy. "I told you, not gods, never gods." But outside, the alien commander felt. It took the signal, the human voice, far across the void. His eyes narrowed. "Cold and bright, so it is true," he whispered. "The humans dare send one. Ship one. Fragile warship against gods." He turned to his officers. "Prepare the fleet. If they come, they will not leave." The Devanar ships shifted in the sky, their dark hulls glowing with symbols. Burning red beams of light swept the colony, brighter, harsher. The voice thundered in their minds again. "No one is coming. You belong to us, Bo. Or burn but this time." The words did not crush as before. Instead, whispers spread through the people. "They are lying." Mara heard them. "They are afraid. The Valiant is real families." Huddled together, whispering the name Valiant, like a prayer. Some still bowed out of fear, but many lifted their heads again, their eyes uncertain, but no longer empty. Governor Hale heard the whispers and felt strength return to his weary bones. He stood in the square and shouted, "Hold fast. Do not give them your spirit. We are not alone." The alien projection appeared again, towering bright, its voice sharp with fury. "No one will save you." But the people no longer screamed as they once did. They murmured among themselves, defying in small ways, and the commander saw Ith, raised his hand, and the ships fired again. Beams tore into the hills, explosions shook the ground, fire lit the night. The people screamed, but still some stood. Hall refused to kneel. Reeve, though bleeding, refused to bend. Mara clutched the console, whispering, "Hold on, hold." On the drones swarmed the communication station again, claws tearing walls, metal shrieking. Reeve staggered to his feet, weapon in hand, ready to die if he must. But before the machine struck, a new sound filled the air, a sound no one had heard before. Deep thunder rolled across the sky, not like the smooth hum of Devanary engines, but raw, fierce human engines. Fire streaked across the heavens, burning against the blackness, and for a moment even the alien ships froze. The people rushed outside, pointing, shouting. The sky glowed with a light brighter than dawn. The Devanary projection flickered with static, its form shaking as if the connection trembled. Reeve shouted with what voice he had left, "Do you see it? Do you see it? They are coming." The commander in the flagship bared his teeth, rage boiling. He shouted to his crew, "Find that signal, destroy it now, crush their hope before it grows." Even as his words rang out, another human transmission cut across the alien channels, loud and sharp. "Vega 9. This is Valiant. Hold strong." Every colonist heard it clear as day, not in their minds, but in the air through the open. Comes the voice of humanity, the voice of defiance. The square erupted with cries of joy. Even those who had been kneeling leaped too, their feet shouting and weeping. Valiant. The commander's rage boiled over. He ordered all weapons charged. The flagship glowed red with power, preparing to strike not just the station, not just a building, but the entire colony, one single beam to wipe it from the map. Mara saw the readings on the console. She screamed, "They're going to burn us all."
Oh, melee.
Hale looked up at the burning sky, his heart pounding. Reeve staggered outside, staring up into the heavens, his fists clenched. Then the sky tore open. A shape emerged, massive, dark-edged. With fire, the alien ships scattered as the warship arrived. its hull black and silver, its engines roaring, its cannons glowing. It dwarfed the Edenari vessels, and its presence filled the sky with human power. The people cried out in awe, tears streaming down their faces, the name spreading through them like fire. Valiant. The alien commander froze, his voice cracking. One ship, one fragile ship. Then he steadied himself, shouting, "Destroy it!" But deep inside his chest, for the first time in ages, there was doubt. The warship moved slowly, but with purpose, its weapons lit. Like stars, one blast shot out, cutting through a Divinari vessel like paper. The ship exploded in flames, lighting the sky. The colonists gasped as the gods bled before their eyes. Commander hissed, furious, "Impossible. No ship can pierce our shields." But his crew stared in silence, their eyes wide as more blasts erupted. More alien ships fell, burning through the clouds. Reeve shouted until his throat tore. "They bleed, they bleed." Hale's voice rose above the people. "We are not alone. We are not defeated. Humanity fights." The colony shook with cries and cheers, hope rising like a storm. The Devinar voice in their minds tried again, "Kneel," but the words rang hollow against the thunder of the Valiant's guns. Mara gripped the console, whispering again and again, "They are here. They are here." The battle filled the sky, alien beams lashing human, cannons roaring, fire and smoke lighting the heavens above. Vega 9, but for the first time since the Devinar arrived, the colonists no longer felt helpless. They no longer felt broken. They stood together, eyes lifted not in fear but in hope, and above them the Valiant moved like a blade of vengeance, carving the lie of Godhood into dust. The Devinari had come to show power, they had come to demand worship. But now, in the dark of space, they faced something they had not expected: the unyielding strength of humanity. And for the first time the gods were afraid. The sky over Vega 9 still burned from the battle wreckage of alien ships drifted in orbit, glowing red as they fell through the atmosphere, fire trails cutting across the heavens. The people of the colony stared with wide eyes, some laughing, some weeping, as the sight of their so-called gods breaking filled them with hope. For the first time since the invasion, they felt alive, but hope was fragile, and the Devinari were not yet defeated. Their fleet stretched wide, and though some had fallen, many remained. The alien flagship still loomed high above its ruins, glowing its commander, watching with cold fury as the human warship moved among his vessels. The HSS Valiant was not a myth, it was real, massive and dark, its cannons shining like suns with every blast. Yet the battle had only begun. Governor Hale stood in the square, looking up, his heart beating fast. He turned to the people and shouted, "Stand strong! They bleed, they can be broken. Humanity is not alone anymore." The colonists cheered the word Valiant, rising through the crowd again and again, but beneath their joy there was still fear, for they knew the Devinari would not fall. Isalian, the communication station, Mara stayed at her console, speaking quickly to the Valiant, every sentence desperate, every word a plea. "This is Vega 9's enemy fleet still above us. Dozens of ships, colony defenseless. We cannot hold without youth." Reply came calm, steady, "This is Valiant. We have you in sight. Hold your ground. Protect the civilians. We will not abandon you." Mara, as tears fell as she whispered "Thank you" into the mic. Reeve leaned against the broken wall near her, still bleeding but smiling weakly. "Told you," he muttered. "Gods don't fear, but they do above in the alien flagship." The commander paced, his voice sharp. "We underestimated them. One warship dares challenge us. But we are gods. We will crush their steel like clay." He turned to his lieutenants. "Send hunters. Send every drone. Choke the colony. Destroy their spirit before that ship can break us further." Obedient, the order spread through the fleet. The skies filled with movement as new waves of drones, black and insect-like, poured down toward Vega 9, their wings buzzing, their claws gleaming. The colonists saw them, and their new hope trembled. Hale shouted for calm, ordering families into shelters. Soldiers with rifles gathered in the streets, their weapons small compared to the alien machines, but their eyes no longer empty. They would fight. Reeve grabbed his tool again, staggering to stand beside them, blood on his shirt but fire in his eyes. He shouted, "They want us broken. They will have to cut us down first." The men and women around him lifted their rifles higher, the crowd whispering in unison, "Valiant, Valiant!" The drones descended into the colony streets, beams of light, slicing walls, searching. For the transmitter searching for defiance, the people screamed, but they did not kneel this time. They fired back their bullets, small but loud, echoing through the night. Every shot a cry of resistance. Reeve swung his weapon into a drone, sparks flying. As he smashed its sensors, it screeched and lashed back, but Hale and two soldiers fired together. Bringing it down, the crowd cheered, though the victory was small. Mara screamed from the console. "They're trying to jam the signal. They want to cut us." Off from the Valiant, Reeve shouted, "Then guard, where she is." Our voice, the colonists formed a line in front of the communication station. Weapons raised, teeth, clenched, even children, clutching stones to throw if it came to that. Above, the Valiant fired. Again tearing another alien vessel into pieces, the commander watched with rage but also unease. His gods were bleeding too often, his soldiers whispering at their stations. He hissed, "Silence, we are eternal, we cannot fall." But doubts spread like cracks. In glass, the drones swarmed heavier, blasting walls, tearing apart streets. The colonists fought desperately, but their weapons were weak. Bodies fell. Cries filled the night. Mara screamed through the mic, "We are under heavy attack. They want the station." Voice from the Valiant replied, calm and unbroken, "We hear you. Hold the line. Help is coming then." The human warship shifted closer, breaking through the clouds. Its massive shadow covering the colony, its cannons fired downward, slicing drones in half. The people cried out with joy. The ground shook as burning wrecks of alien machines fell like meteors. The defenders cheered, raising their rifles higher. Rev staggered forward, swinging at another drone, his strength failing but his will endless. Mara ran to his side, pulling him back. "Don't die, not now. Not when they are here." He smiled weakly. "Only when it matters." Still the Divinari pressed harder. Beams rained from their ships. Above, explosions lighting the outskirts of the colony. The flagship itself turned its weapons, preparing to strike. Hale shouted for the people to scatter. "Take cover," but before the blast could fall, the Valiant rose between the flagship and the colony. Its dark hull catching the light like a shield. A voice boomed from the Valiant, broadcast across the colony and the enemy alike, "This is humanity's ground. No false god will take it." The people screamed with joy, their hope roaring like fire. The Devinar crews trembled, their commanders snarled, "Fire everything." And the sky erupted, beams lashing, cannons roaring, the clash shaking the heavens on. The ground, the colonists watched in awe, torn between fear and pride, their lives hanging on the duel above, every explosion lighting their faces. Every blast a prayer. Answered or denied, Mara held the mic, whispering again and again, "Hold them, hold them." Battle raged, but the commander had not forgotten the colony below. He turned to his officers, "Send assassins, land forces, tear out the roots."
Oh, we fight the
Blade, and so new ships broke from the fleet, dark dropships. Carrying warriors armed with weapons the colonists had never seen, they descended. Like black arrows striking the outskirts, the ground quaked as alien soldiers stepped into the dust hall. Armored, their eyes glowing, they moved with terrible purpose. The colonists gasped, some froze in terror. These were no drones. These were living warriors. Reeve pushed forward, though barely standing, his voice hoarse. "Fight them. We can't stop the fleet. But we can stop these, Mara. Stay inside, protect the signal." Hale rallied the people, forming lines in the streets, rifles shaking but steady. The first clash was brutal. Alien weapons fired beams that cut through walls. Human rifles cracked in return. Bodies fell, cries echoed, but the colonists did not scatter. They fought, screaming, valiant with every shot. Reeve swung his weapon again, striking. One alien across its helmet, the creature staggered, its glowing eyes dimming before Hale fired into its chest, dropping it to the ground. For every colonist that fell, another stepped forward. Mothers, fathers, even the old fought with whatever they had, stones, knives, tools. It was not power, it was will above. The duel of giants continued. The Valiant carving through ships but taking blows itself, its shields flickering, its holes scorched the flagship, hammering it with relentless fire. Yet the human warship held its ground, refusing to move from above the colony. Mara's console sparked again, her voice trembling, "Valiant, you are taking heavy fire. Do you hear me? Do you hear me?" The reply came steady as stone. We hear you. Vega 9 humanity hears you. Hold the people clung to those words, even as fire rained around them, even as alien soldiers closed in, even as the commander laughed in fury, thinking the humans would soon break, but they did not. Night burned endless, filled with smoke and screams and thunder. But inside that storm, a truth grew. The Devanari were not gods, they were flesh. In blood and they could bleed. Reeve fell to his knees once nearly dead, but Mara caught him, her eyes fierce. You don't get to fall? Not yet, he coughed blood, but smiled weakly. Not yet. Not while they need Metha. Colonists fought on their hope, no. Longer just whispered, but shouted every strike, every bullet, every defiant cry, shaking the lie of divinity and, high above the valiant, turned its cannons on the flagship, the clash of power lighting the sky as if a second sun had risen the shadows. Of despair had returned with fury, but in those shadows burned the fire of resistance, and humanity's true strength was only beginning to show. The battle above Vega 9 raged without pause. The night sky glowed red with fire trails as alien ships fell burning through the atmosphere. The Valiant hung between the colony and the Divinari fleet, its massive hull black and scarred its cannons. Lighting like suns with every shot, each thunderous blast shook the heavens, and the people on the ground cried out as if every strike came from their own heartspot. The Devanari flagship still loomed, its glowing runes alive with power its weapons. Hammering the human warship in wave after wave, every impact rattled the Valiant's shields. Every blast echoed through its steel hulls. The crew felt the strain, but not one broke. They knew their ship carried more than steel. It carried humanity's. Defiance in the colony, the ground trembled with every strike. Mara clutched the console, her voice raw from shouting updates. Valiant shields are holding, but barely more ships incoming. They are trying to flank you, static hissed, then the steady voice of the captain came through. We see them stay under cover, protect the civilians, Governor. Hale stood among the people in the square. His rifle in his hands, though he could barely use it, he shouted orders to guide families into shelters. Keep them safe while soldiers fought in the streets. Reeve leaned against rubble, barely able to stand, but still clutching his tool, ready to strike at anything that came. Close alien soldiers prowled the outskirts, tall armored, their glowing eyes filled with cruelty, their weapons firing beams that sliced through walls. Human defenders fired back, their bullets small, but deadly when aimed at weak spots. Some aliens fell, their illusion of godhood torn apart with every drop of blood. The Devanari commander on the flagship watched with cold fury, his gods bleeding again and again. He hissed, "Destroy the warship before it destroys us," his officers obeyed, unleashing a barrage so fierce it lit the night brighter than Datha. Valiant shuddered under the U. Assault alarms blaring inside its halls, sparks raining from consoles. The crew worked without fear, their voices sharp, shields holding at 30%, rerouting power, targeting systems locked fire. Cannons roared, answering back with burning fury. Beams of light cut across the void, tearing through two alien ships. They erupted into flame, their wreckage spinning downward. The people below gasped and cheered, tears streaming down their faces. The gods fall, the gods fall. Mara's hands shook. At her console she whispered, "They can do it. They can break them." Reeve weak, but smiling rasped, "I told you they're only flesh, not gods." The commander's voice thundered into the minds of the colonists. "Kneel now or burn with your warship." But the words no longer carried power. They rang hollow against the thunder of human guns. Governor Hale shouted at the crowd, "Do you hear them? Their gods fear. One ship, one human ship breaks them. Stand proud. We are not alone anymore." The people cried out together, voices rising above their fear. Humanity, humanity, humanity. The Divinari shifted tactics, unleashing swarms of drones to overwhelm the Valiant like insects. They swarmed across its hull, cutting with claws and plasma. Beam sparks lit the darkness. As they tore at its armor, the ship groaned under their assault inside. The Valiant crew rushed through corridors, rifles in hand, fighting drones that sliced through hatches. The ship became a battlefield within and without. Yet the crew fought as one. Every corridor held, every deck defended. No machine would claim their ship. On the ground, the alien soldiers pushed harder into the colony, their beams cutting through homes. The people fought back with everything they had: rifles, knives, even stones. Hale led them, shouting with raw fury. Reeve swung his weapon again, striking down another soldier, though his strength was nearly gone. Mara stayed at the console, sending every update, every plea for aid, her voice unbroken. The commander watched the chaos, his fury boiling. They dare resist, they dare stand against us. Send the flagship forward, Tyr. The colony apart, but even as he spoke, his eyes flickered with doubt. The warship had not fallen. Its fire still burned bright, and for the first time, his own crew hesitated, fear creeping into their movements. Valiant's captain stood on the command bridge, his eyes fixed on the flagship, his voice calm, steady. Bring us closer, prepare the main guns. His officers hesitated. Sir, shields are failing. We won't survive another volley. The captain's jaw tightened. Then let us not survive in silence. Humanity fights today. Fire, though. Valiant surged forward, engines blazing. The flagship answered with fire, the void between them filled with storms of light explosions ripping across the sky. The colonists below watched in awe as two giants clashed above their heads. One final blast from the Valiant's main cannon struck true. It ripped through the shields of a massive Devanari ship, not the flagship, but one of its guards. The vessel split in half, burning wreckage falling like meteors. The colony shook as fragments struck the hill's flames. Rising high, the people gasped and shouted louder than ever. The gods bleed, the gods bleed. The commander slammed his fist against the console, fury breaking through his mask. Destroy them all. But in his heart, the doubt grew stronger. Ara cried out from her console. Valiant, you did it. You broke them, you broke them. Static crackled, then the captain's voice steady and firm. Vega 9. We are not done yet. Hold strong. This is only the beginning. Revel laughed, though it turned into a cough of blood. He whispered to Mara, You hear that? Only the beginning. The Devanari grew desperate, their fleet circling, trying to flank, but the Valiant moved like a predator, striking at their weak points, its cannons tearing through ships. One by one, smoke and fire trailing across the heavens, every kill a wound to their pride, every blast a proof that they were not eternal. On the ground, the alien soldiers began to falter, their beams less steady, their movements slower. The colonists pressed harder, shouting with rage, firing with fury, stones striking helmets, knives cutting gaps. The gods bleed, they bleed. Hale raised his rifle, firing into the glowing chest of a soldier. The alien collapsed, and the governor shouted louder than ever, We stand, we fight, we are human. The people echoed his cry, the sound rising so high it seemed to shake the sky itself. Humanity. Humanity. The commander's projection flickered over the colony, his voice cracking with rage. Silence. Insect silence, but his words no longer held power. The colonists shouted over him, their voices drowning his lease on the bridge of the flagship. The commander's officers looked uneasy, their eyes flicking toward him. Some whispered, Are they truly gods if they bleed? But the commander roared, Enough. We will end this. Prepare the divine. Weapon lights blazed across the flagship, runes glowing brighter than ever, power building like a storm. Mara saw the readings on her console, her face pale. She whispered to Reeve, They are charging something worse. Reeve clenched his fists, whispered to the Valiant, Warn them. She did, her voice breaking. Valiant, they are preparing something massive. Get ready. The captain's voice answered, calm and unyielding, We are ready. Humanity always is. The battle raged brighter, louder, the colony trembling under its fury. But the people no longer cowered. They stood together, weapons raised, voices united, their fear broken, replaced by fire above. The sky lit with storms as the first clash with fire reached its true peak. Humanity against false gods, one warship against an empire, and for the first time, the outcome was not certain. The Devanari had claimed godhood, but gods did not bleed. Gods did not fear, and tonight above Vega 9 fear was theirs. The sky over Vega 9 burned like a furnace, alien ships breaking apart in fire trails across the black night. The colony shook under the echoes of thunder, each blast from the Valiant roaring like a hammer against the heavens. The people looked up, their eyes wide, their hearts racing. The gods were not untouchable anymore. They were bleeding, they were afraid. On the ground, the streets were filled with smoke, and fire alien soldiers fought the colonists at close-range beams lashing through walls. Rifles cracking in reply, the cries of the wounded mixed with the shouts of the living Governor Hale stood at the front, his rifle gripped tight, his voice hoarse as he shouted, "Orders, hold the line, keep them back, they fall, just like us, fight, fight, Treve." Stumbled through the chaos, his tools slick with alien blood, his shirt torn and stained. He should have fallen hours ago, but his rage kept him upright. He swung again and again at armored soldiers, each strike weaker, but each one a promise he would not stop until he fell. Mara stayed inside the cum station, her fingers flying across the console. She shouted reports to the Valiant, her voice breaking, "Shields failing on your starboard. Flank multiple ships closing in." The Valiant's captain answered steady as ever, "We see them, we bleed, but we stand. Hold your ground, Vega 9, the Devanari commander." On his flagship snarled at the sight of his fleet falling vessel by vessel, his voice a hiss of fury. "We are gods, we do not bleed," and yet his own crew exchanged glances, their faces pale, whispers spreading across the bridge. "They bleed, they bleed." The lie unraveling in their minds. Another blast from the Valiant tore through the sky, ripping apart a destroyer. The explosion so bright it lit the colony streets below. The people cheered wildly, their cries of joy echoing louder than the thunder above. They shouted the word again and again, "Valiant, Valiant." The commander slammed his fist on the console. "Silence, they are insects. They are nothing." His officers nodded, but their hands shook as they worked, the fear growing with every human strike down in the colony. The fight turned. Savage alien soldiers began to falter, their glowing eyes flickering as their confidence cracked. One stumbled back as hail fired into its chest, another fell to a storm of stones thrown by desperate colonists. Even the children screamed and hurled whatever they could, their fear burned away by rage. "The gods bleed, they bleed." Reeve staggered after another soldier, his body failing but his spirit aflame. Mara cried out from the doorway, "Stop, you'll die," but he shouted back, "Then I'll die standing," and slammed his tool into the soldier's helm, sparks bursting. The creature collapsed. Mara ran forward, catching Reeve before he fell to the ground. He grinned through blood, "See, not so divine." After all, the battle above grew fiercer. The Divinar flagship unleashed wave after wave of fire, hammering the Valiant. The human ship shook under the onslaught, alarms screaming, decks torn open, drones swarming across its hull. But the crew did not break. They fought in corridors with rifles in their hands. They patched burning systems with bare fingers. They shouted with one voice, "Hold, hold, hold inside." The flagship, the commander's fury boiled, his pride shattered. He screamed at his officers, "Unleash the divine weapon, burn them all." His crew hesitated, their voices trembling. "Sir, the runes are not stable. If we unleash it, we burn with them." But his eyes glowed with madness. "Then we burn with glory." The weapon began to charge, lights blazing across the flagship, glowing like a second sun. Mara's console flared with warnings. She gasped to Hale and Reeve, "They are charging something huge. If it fires, we're finished." She pressed the mic to her lips. "Valiant, they're preparing their weapon. You have to stop them." The captain's voice came back. "Strong, then we stop them. Prepare all cannons. Bring us in close." The Valiant surged forward, engines blazing, smoke trailing across its scarred hull. It fired again and again, blasting through enemy escorts. The sky tore apart under its fury. The colonists watched in awe as the ship fought like a beast against the storm. Mara whispered through tears, "They're going straight for it." The flagship's runes burned brighter. The weapon nearly ready, the commander shouted, "We will show them true godhood." But before the weapon could fire, the Valiant's main cannon roared its blast, striking deep into the flagship's shields. Shattering armor, breaking the colony, shook with the sound of the impact, light flooding the sky. The people screamed with joy inside. The flagship flames erupted, consoles shattered, crew thrown from their stations. The commander staggered to his feet, his voice breaking. "No, no, we are eternal, we cannot fall." But his words rang hollow even to his own ears. His crew stared at him with "Fear not, reverence," they whispered. "Gods do not bleed, but we bleed." Flagship fired back, and rage beams lashing across the Valiant's hull, tearing metal apart. Alarms screamed across its decks. but the human ship refused to fall its captains. Voice steady through the chaos, all power to forward guns. This ends now. The colonists huddled in the streets, eyes locked on the sky. Their hearts beating as one, every second stretched into eternity. Every blast a prayer answered or denied. Hale gripped his rifle tight, whispering to himself, come on, Reeve. Lay in Mara's arms, barely able to breathe, but he whispered weakly, they're going to do it. I know it. She clutched him tight, her tears falling. Not yet, you're staying right. Here to see at the Valiant's final blast struck the flagship straight through its burning runes. The explosion was blinding, brighter than the sun. The shockwave ripped across the sky, shaking the colony to its core. Alien ships spun out of control. Some burning, some fleeing. The people covered their eyes. From the light when it faded, they looked up gasping. The flagship was broken, split down the middle, fire pouring from its wounds. The commander stood on his shattered bridge, smoke and fire around him. His crew dead or fleeing, he screamed into the void, I am a god, I am eternal, but his words were drowned out by the groan of his ship breaking apart, the flagship burning as it fell toward the void. The colonists saw it and erupted into cries. So loud they shook the air, the gods bleed, the gods fall. Humanity, Hale fell to his knees, laughing and sobbing at once. Mara screamed with joy, clutching Reeve tight. Reeve managed to smile through the blood. Told you they bleed above the battlefield. The remaining divinatory ships broke their formation. Many fled into the dark. Their fear greater than their pride, others burned. Under the Valiant's guns, the once mighty fleet scattered and broken. The people of Vega 9 had stood against gods and seen them bleed. They had stood with one warship and broken an empire's pride. The night was not silent, it was filled with fire and smoke, but in the hearts of the colonists burned a new light, the light of truth. The Devanari were not gods. They were only tyrants. Only flesh and blood and flesh could break in. Now with their flagship shattered, their lies torn open, their empire would never be the same. The Valiant hung scarred and smoking above the colony, its hull broken, its shields gone. But still standing, still unbroken, Mara whispered into the mic, her voice trembling. Valiant, do you hear me? Do you hear me? The captain's voice came back calm and steady. We hear you. Vega 9, the gods bleed. The people cheered again, louder than ever. Their cries echoing across the night. Humanity, the battle was not over, the war was not won, but for the first time in history, humanity had faced gods and proved them false, and the galaxy would never forget the ruins of the Divinar. Flagship drifted across the black sky, pieces glowing red as they burned in the upper atmosphere. The wreckage spread wide like a broken crown of fire. The people of Vega 9 stood in the streets, staring upward, their mouths open, their hearts racing. They had seen the impossible. The gods had fallen. The colony was battered, homes shattered, streets burning, but the people no longer felt small. Their voices rose together, a roar that shook the night. Humanity, the cry spread across the settlement, until even the wounded whispered it through their pain, and the Valiant, the crew staggered through, smoke-filled halls, their uniforms torn, their faces black with soot alarms, wailed across the decks, but the ship was alive, scarred and bleeding. But alive, the captain stood at the bridge window, staring at the drifting remains of the flagship, his jaw set, his voice low. They claimed eternity. Now they burned. Mara leaned against the console in the come station, her hands shaking. She called into the mic. Valiant, are you there? Her voice cracked with fear. Static filled the air for a moment. Then the captain answered, calm as stone. We stand. Vega 9, we stand. The people in the square erupted in cheers, tears streaming down their faces. Reeve lay on the ground near Mara, barely conscious, his breathing shallow, but when he heard the captain's voice, he smiled weakly. Told you they bleed. Told you they fall. Mara pressed her hands against his wound, whispering, not yet, you are going to live long enough to see it. All Governor Hale stood tall, though his clothes were scorched. His eyes burned with fire. He raised his rifle to the sky and shouted to the people. The gods bleed, they fall. They are no more than us. Fight and live, the crowd roared. Back their cries echoing across the broken colony. But the battle was not yet over. Alien ships still circled above, many fleeing into the void, but some holding their ground, their commanders uncertain whether to avenge or retreat. The Devanari fleet had never faced fear, but now fear gnawed at them. On the flagship wreck, the Devanari commander crawled across a burning deck, his armor scorched, his body broken, yet his voice still screamed, "I am eternal, I am divine," but no one listened, his crew dead, his empire broken, his words lost in the crackle of flame. The wreck groaned and split further, the last of its power. Vanishing into the void, the Valiant turned its guns to the remaining ships, its voice like thunder across the "Come, this is your only chance, leave or die." The human crew locked onto targets, ready to finish what had begun. The alien fleet wavered, then broke, scattering into the stars. Their discipline shattered, their faith destroyed. The people of Vega 9 watched them flee there. Cheers filling the night. They had faced gods and stood unbroken. They had fought with stones and rifles beside one ship of steel and fire, and they had... When Mara held Reeve's hand tight as she listened to the cheers, her tears falling, she whispered, "Do you hear that we did it? We really did it?" Reeve smiled faintly, his voice barely a breath. Humanity in the square. Hale lowered his rifle, his chest heaving. He looked at the faces around him, men, women, children bloodied. But standing, he said softly, "To himself they thought we were ants, but tonight we roared like lions on the Valiant's bridge." The captain stood silent, his crew waiting for his words. He looked at the drifting wreckage, the glowing fragments falling into the void, then he spoke. Steady and sure, today they learned the truth. Today the galaxy begins to change. Mara's voice crackled through his "Come, Captain. The colony is still burning. We need help." His reply came swift. "We will send what we can. You fought well, Vega 9, stand tall. You have shown the galaxy what humans are." The people did not sleep that night. Fires burned across the colony, but they gathered together in the open square, voices rising in song, laughter, tears, strangers, holding each other as family because they had survived the impossibly above them. The Valiant floated, broken, yet unbowed. Like a guardian of fire, its hull scarred, but its spirit burning. The people looked up at it with awe and whispered the name again and again. Valiant, valiant, far beyond Vega 9. The message spread, ships carried the tale across human colonies. Whispers turned to shouts, entire worlds hearing the words. The gods bleed. The empire trembled, cracks spreading through its heart. The lie of divinity shattered by one warship and one colony. Hidden places, other species listened. Slaves bent under Devanari ruled, their eyes wide, their hearts stirring. For the first time, with hope, they asked each other, if the gods can bleed, what else is possible? The commander's voice was gone, his ship destroyed, his power broken, but the shadow of his empire still stretched. Across the stars, the war was not finished. The Devanari would strike again, yet they would never be the same, never untouchable, never God's son, the colony's edge. Hal walked among the wounded, his rifle slung across his back. He stopped beside Mara, who knelt beside Reeve, the young man still weak but alive. Hale looked at him and said softly, "You gave them courage more than you know." Reeve smiled faintly and whispered, "I only told the truth." The governor looked to the sky at the Valiant glowing faintly in orbit, his eyes hard with resolve. "We are not finished, not until every false god falls." Mara nodded, tears in her eyes, and whispered, "Then let's finish it together." Valiant's crew worked through the night, repairing what they could. Every hand moving, every voice steady. They were tired, wounded, but their spirits unbroken. Their captain told them, "The fleet will come again, and we will meet them again stronger than before." And so the night ended, not with silence, but with fire, with voices raised in defiance, with hope blazing where fear once ruled. The people of Vega 9 would never again bow to false gods. They had seen them bleed, and once a lie is broken, it can never be restored. The dawn came red over the hills, smoke still rising from the colony, but the people stood together, their eyes lifted, their voices strong. For the first time in history, humanity had faced gods and proven them false, and in that moment, the future of the galaxy shifted forever, the gods claimed eternity, but eternity was broken now. Eternity had bled, and humanity had risen.